Hello Primary 4 students. Do you remember the exciting hands-on activity we had in our last lesson? Yes, that's it. The reaction time. It was an exciting experiment where we applied what we learned about the senses, the nervous system, and our responses to stimulus. المرة اللي فاتت اتكلمنا على reaction time يعني وقت رد الفعل وكمان الجهاز العصبي وازاي بنقدر نعمل responses أو ردود أفعال للديفرنت stimulus اللي هي للمحفزات المختلفة. Today we will move on in our learn lessons and the question we need to answer by the end of this lesson is how the nervous system works. Like how do the parts of the nervous system work together to do their functions. Bring your student book and pencil and let's start lesson 5 of concept senses at work. Right now and while I'm talking and you are listening, there are several processes carried out by our nervous system. Let's start in our activity 11, observe like a scientist. In Observe Like a Scientist, we will know more about how the nervous system works. So, open your book page 56 and let's read the text and use your observation skills to learn more about the meaning of the two terms. المصطلحين اللي هنركز عليهم دلوقتي sensory input and motor input. And we are going to identify the rules in the nervous system. I had a lot of observation from the text, like senses are responsible for gathering information. الحواس مسؤولة عن تجميع المعلومات. Like when the ears hear the sound of a chirping bird, then they send the message to the brain, and the brain processes the information. When this happens, the body realizes that there is a bird sound and begins to respond by looking for the sound source. Let's draw this action. أول حاجة بتحصل when we have a stimulus. يعني مثلا I hear the sound of the bird. بيبقى عندي sensory organ and the sensory organ will send sensory input. Will send sensory input to the brain. طيب السنسوري input اللي رايحة البرين هتروح جوه ايه؟ It will move inside nerves. The brain will start processing information يعني هيبتدي يترجم المعلومة and will produce motor input. The motor input also will move inside a nerve. And this motor input will go to any body organ. For example, I will take the body muscles as an example of this organ. زي بالظبط ما قلنا إن أنا سمعت صوت العصفورة. This is the sensory organ, the ears who receives this sensory stimulus. The sensory input moves to the brain, so the brain interprets it, ابتدى يفهمها, وبعدين it produces out motor input to the muscle, so I will turn my head to look for this bird. دي كانت أبسط طريقة لتفسير المعلومات بتحصل كتير قوي في يومنا. There are also very fast messages that we call reflexes, in which the body responds extremely quickly to protect itself from danger. الريفلكسز تعتبر رد فعل لإنقاذ المواقف. دايما الريفلكسز بتحصل in dangerous situations. زي مثلا إن أنا ألمس حاجة very hot. When I touch very hot object اللي هيحصل لازم أرفع إيدي بسرعة. This is a reflex. رد فعل. There are also other messages that are relayed and from the brain automatically, like the signal to breathe. في كمان messages على طول ماشية جوه جسمي وأنا مش حاسس إنها ماشية. زي المسجز اللي ماشية automatically. Automatically يعني على طول شغالة لوحدها. Okay? Those messages like breathing and like the digestive system movement دايما بتحصل من غير ما أحسها. If you still cannot identify the sensory input and motor inputs, Let's watch this video together. Do not forget to hold your pen and be ready to write down all your observations. يلا نشوف مع بعض الفيديو. أهم حاجة دايما تبقوا مركزين في ال sensory organs والفانكشن بتاعتهم.
The nervous system. The nervous system consists of the brain, spinal cord, and nerves. It can be divided into two parts: the central nervous system, which includes the brain and spinal cord, and the peripheral nervous system, which is made up of the nerves that come from the brain and spinal cord. The brain, though small, can do more jobs than the most powerful computer made. It controls all the other body systems and keeps them working smoothly. It houses your thoughts, feelings, and memories. Your brain is what makes you, you. 8 bones in your skull fit together like a jigsaw puzzle to form a strong eggshell shape to protect your brain. The spinal cord is the main pathway between your brain and the rest of your body. It is made up of bundles of nerves and protected from injury by the spinal column, 33 separate bones called vertebrae. Both the brain and the spinal cord are cushioned by layers of membranes, as well as a special fluid called cerebrospinal fluid. This fluid helps protect the nerve tissue, keep it healthy, and remove waste products. The peripheral nervous system consists of all the nerves that come out from the brain and the spinal cord. 31 pairs of spinal nerves branch out between the vertebrae to go to all the other parts of your body. But what is a nerve? A nerve is a bundle of nerve cells. Nerve cells, or neurons, are the basic unit of the entire nervous system. Your brain is made up of billions of neurons.
Have you observed what happened with Sarah? I got now how each part of our nervous system has its own function. However, it cannot work alone. All the parts of the nervous system must work together to make their own functions. So, the different senses receive the information, then the brain interprets it. Interpret معناها process information. And then it sends messages to the body organs so they can respond, telling them exactly what to do. After all the observation we got, I think we can define the sensory input as the information that our nervous system gather through the different senses and send to the brain. As for the motor inputs, there are the messages that the brain sends to the motor organs. Brain sends it to the motor organs in our body, such as our hands and feet to move. Haven't that reminded you of something in our previous lesson? Exactly. This is what happened in the reaction time experiment. Your eyes saw the meter stick while it is dropped and sent a signal to your brain. And your brain told your hand to respond. So it catches the meter stick before it falls to the ground. أول step حصلت هنا إيه؟ My eyes saw the meter stick falling. ده معناها إن بقى فيه sensory input هيتبعت للبرين from sensory organ to the brain. Then my brain interpret the information and send a motor input to the other organs, to my hands to be closed. This is the motor input. As we said before, there are reflexes that you are barely aware of them, like removing your hand immediately when you touch a very hot cup. These reflexes have an essential role in protecting our body from injuries and keeping us safe from danger. دايما الريفلكسز بتبقى مرتبطة بالمواقف الخطر، زي ان انا المس حاجة سخنة او المس شوكة، وقتها بلاقي ايدي بتتشال بسرعة جدا. يبقى ريفلكسز كأنها رد فعل لموقف خطر. Reflex is not the only thing that happens without thinking or involuntarily. Can you guess what else happens in our body without thinking of it? Whether we are awake, asleep, or focused on anything, there are processes are done all the time without our intervention. Our body makes some functions automatically and involuntarily without thinking of them, like breathing, heart beating, and digesting food. That you know in concept 1. متخيلين إن في some things happening inside my body automatically، يعني أنا ما بتحكمش فيهم، هم على طول شغالين لوحدهم، وبرضو اللي بيتحكم فيهم هو النيرفس سيستم. تمام؟ يبقى احنا خدنا بالنا النيرفس سيستم متحكم في الاوتوماتيك ريسبونسز، كمان في الريفلكس اكشن، وفي النورمال السنسوري انبوت والموتور انبوت. As we recorded a lot of evidence that can help us understand more about how the senses and the nervous system work, I think we are ready now for activity number 12 in your book. Evaluate like a scientist. In Evaluate Like a Scientist, we will use all the pieces of evidence that we have collected to describe the nervous system and its parts. We saw together that the parts of the nervous system are connected through the nerves that send and receive information from the body. Do you remember the function of each part? I bet you know that. Let's open the book on page 57 to revise them together and circle the right parts of the nervous system. Brain, I wonder, is it part of the nervous system? Yes, that's right. The brain is part of the nervous system because it receives the information and processes it like the computer, and then send messages to the body to decide the best action. Hold your pen and circle the photo of the brain in your book. البرين مسؤول عن processing information لأنه بيستقبل الimpulses وبيبعت كمان impulses. Nerves. What about the nerves? Are they part of the nervous system? Think a little. Yes, nerves are part of the nervous system and they are distributed through all the body and they connect the sense organs to the brain. يعني هم حلقة الوصل ما بين كل السنسوري organs والبرين بتاعنا. The nerve receives the information from the senses, then send a signal by the information to the brain, which process the information and send a signal through a motor nerve to the organ to respond. Let's circle the photo of the nerves. So the brain and the nerves are part of the nervous system. What else from the picture is part of the nervous system? Blood or spinal cord, or both of them? I bet you know the answer. That's cool. The spinal cord. The spinal cord is part of the nervous system, responsible for sending messages from the brain to the body and vice versa. The left is the blood, and as you expected, it's not part of the nervous system. Now you know the parts of the nervous system correctly. Imagine if the parts receive information from the senses, but the nerve responsible for transferring the feeling doesn't exist. What will happen? A great way of thinking. No message will be sent to the brain. تخيل كده لو السنسوري اورجن استقبلت مسج بس ما فيش نيرف يوصلها للبرين، يبقى كده ما فيش حاجة هتحصل في جسمي. This means that there is no information processing or any feeling, which is like a blind or deaf creature. Imagine if the sense organ sends a message to the brain through the nerve, but the brain doesn't translate it. Yes, there won't be a process to input nor response from the body. تخيل كده لو المسج خلاص وصلت البرين بس البرين ما عملهاش processing، ما فهمهاش، يبقى مش هيبقى فيه أي action، مش هيبقى فيه أي رد فعل. Think what would happen if each part of the nervous system worked individually, or if one part didn't function. Scientists, we will think about that, then write down our answers on page 58 and explain what the parts of the nervous system can do together. What would happen if each part worked individually? I found that the nervous system and all its parts must work together and cannot function if any part is not connected with the other parts. Exactly like all our systems اتكلمنا على الكلام ده برضو في الدايجستيف سيستم، وقلنا ان ما ينفعش الماوث ما يبقاش connected بالستومك. As we have studied in the concept of adaptation, all the body systems must work together, and we have seen how each system in the body adapts in structure to perform a specific function, like the digestive system and the respiratory system. I found that the nervous system and all its parts must work together and cannot function if any part is not connected with the other parts. زي ما قلنا لو أنا شلت النيرفز أو البرين هيبقى عندي مشكلة كبيرة جدا في processing information. As we have studied in concept 1, the body systems must work together, and we have seen how each system in the body adapts in structure to perform specific function, like the digestive system and the respiratory system. Those who complete the work of each other, the digestive system digests and breaks down the food so that the body can absorb it. And the respiratory system provides the oxygen necessary to provide energy from the digested food. Digestive system و respiratory system بيشتغلوا مع بعض في تعاون تام. Digestive system بيكسر الأكل وبيطلع لنا nutrients. At the same time إيه اللي هيحصل؟ النيوترينز دي هتتنقل من البلد لكل البادي parts، وبعد كده we breathe in and the oxygen also that comes in while we inhale هيروح على البادي organs. وقتها هناك هنقدر نطلع energy from the digested food. We also saw the jerboa. And how it needs the sense of hearing and the nerves as they work together to alert the jerboa's legs to move very quickly and help it escape from danger. لما اتكلمنا على الجربوع قلنا ان عنده structural adaptation البيج ears to hear really well. طب هو بيسمع كويس، ايه اللي هيحصل؟ هيبعت sensory input للبرين processing information there is danger let's jump and run. Of course, if any of these parts do not function, the responses and process that are supposed to occur in the body will not happen. Do you remember now the question we started with in our lesson? Yep. How the nervous system works. I think now we have answered it in many ways. And the last thing we will do today is that we will describe the parts of the nervous system, but with a little accurate description. Open the book on page 59 and read the sentences that describe the nervous system and think about what are the correct terms that describe the nervous system to complete the sentence. We will see together some samples of the answers of your colleagues. أهم حاجة وانتوا بتحلوا questions تركزوا على ال keywords. Here. What is like a command center of the body? What is it? Brain? Nerve? Yeah. We learned that the brain is responsible for processing and understanding the information and sending a message to the body to respond. يبقى مين الكوماند سنتر؟ مين المسؤول عن الجسم؟ It's the brain. The brain is like the command center for your body. The second question is, what sends message to the brain? That's right. It must be nerves because their function is to send messages from the brain to different body parts and from different body parts to the brain. The third question is, the brain is part of, it's part of what? Of course, the nervous system. Space are messages the nervous system sends that are often so fast. You do not think about them. So fast? What is them? What are they? Exactly, the reflexes. Of course, this happens when the body is exposed to danger, such as when you touch a very hot cup. You will find your hand moved away from the cup. Then you start to feel the heat after that because your nervous system made a reflex reaction without thinking to protect the body from danger. Let's go to the book activity 13, Analyze like a scientist. In Analyze like a scientist activity, we will use the texts and photos provided and analyze all the information to answer the question. There are 3 texts entitled Your Senses, Your Nervous System During Work and Play, and Moving Messages. Each of us is required to choose 1 or 2 texts to explore. Since we are going to analyze like a scientist, we should identify the main details in the text to explain how the nervous system works. هنختار 1 or 2 texts عشان نبتدي نفسر وندور جواهم على المعلومات المهمة عشان نقدر نعرف ازاي النيرفس سيستم بيشتغل. You have a few minutes to choose a text and analyze it. The first text shows how the senses have a role in gathering information from the environment, as they send signals to the brain to interpret them and make the body decide the best action. فأول text اتكلمنا ازاي البرين بيستقبل المعلومات وبيقرر ايه أحسن action هو هيعمله. The second and the third texts show us how our nervous system and its part work together. The first question is, which text did you choose? I bet you all of you choose different texts that you like. As for the other question, explain how the nervous system works in light of what was presented in the text. The different senses gather information, whether it's a smell or taste, then they send signals to the nerves and then to the spinal cord, then to the brain to interpret it. The brain interprets the information and sends signals back to the body to decide the best action. Of course, each of us can explain how the nervous system works based on the text he or she chooses and the senses they cover. We have known in our lesson today how the parts of the nervous system work together to do functions that protect us from danger and interpret different inputs that we receive and organize the main process that happens in the body. يعني اتكلمنا عن 3 حاجات. How do we process normal information and how do we process in automatic responses and reflexes. Now you are ready to explain the super dolphin senses, the investigative phenomena with pieces of evidence you learned in each lesson. So, be ready and revise all that we learned together about this concept. The next lesson will be the last lesson in the concept of how senses work. You will explain, present, and share with us what you have learned. See you in the next lesson. Thank you.